Hi everybody.
Hi
Welcome.
there.
Welcome back
to Katy Sue Designs headquarters, and a very, very warm welcome to Chef Nicholas Lodge.
Thank you so much.
We've been really, really thrilled to have been working together for a couple of days, and
the Nick and Noreen show.
The Nick and Nor show, which has been great fun. But we really are looking forward to be able to share with you some of the innovation before Nick heads back home. Oh, very sad, I'm filling up. Before he heads back home. So we want to make full use of him, and I'm going to hand you straight over to Nick to get on with showing the magic.
Thank you so much. Well, anyway, welcome everybody, and obviously some of you hopefully joined us at 1 o'clock for our first Facebook Live. In that Facebook Live, which was about 50 minutes, I went into a lot of detail into each of the molds, and obviously the leaflets come with the molds, and then the book. And I'm going to sort of, in this Facebook Live, I'm going to sort of concentrate with just showing you the sort of the basics of how they actually work. So if you missed the 1 o'clock, the earlier Facebook Live, obviously you can catch that up later on this evening. Obviously, those of you in the US, you know, you're still sort of just after early afternoon or late morning in West Coast. So as I said, welcome.
Very warm welcome.
Yes. So as Noreen says, we've just sort of come back today from Hochanda. We did a 24-hour sort of session on Craft TV. So we had 5 sessions, sellout sessions, and it sort of was an amazing response. And so first of all, you know, we've set up a Facebook page, which is this is the Facebook page, which is, as I said, the Facebook group. And so if you just go to Facebook and to put Flower Pro, you'll be able to join this group. And this group is basically to share love of floral with not only with sugar but also with craft, which is something that we really feel is sort of has been neglected.
Yeah. All aspects, so all mediums, whether it's sugar paste, whether it's air dry clay, whether it's jewellery making, with, you know, lots and lots of different things that you can use the molds with. So we just want you to share and inspire each other and give us some inspiration too.
Because those of you that missed like our Conchanda Craft TV, you know, like all of the things behind here, you know, some of these, for example, are made with air drying clay, and these frames were done by some of our design team, where they've actually used the, bring this one down, squeeze the little mug behind it, but see, this is made by Doreen, who is actually one of our team members, who's actually Sue's mom. So I just put it the right way around. But you see how Doreen has used the hydrangea from the filler flowers to make a beautiful frame. So for those of you that like doing things with interior, or obviously enjoy crafts, you know, these are, for example, these are made from air drying clay. It's exactly the same technique I use for sugar hydrangeas, but they're obviously durable. You could use these in a bathroom. And of course, the nice thing about this is that they, you know, you don't have to water them. They're low maintenance, but also the fact that obviously you could give this as a lovely gift.
They actually take on the look as well as of sugar paste.
Yes, because I you know, a few years ago worked with cold porcelain, and so yes, so Noreen's got, so you know, these are sugar hydrangeas here, and these are air drying clay. This is the air drying clay that Katy Sue have on their website. Some of you have also asked about whether we have that on the Katy Sue US website. It is something we're working on at the moment. The hardy clay is a Japanese product, and as I said, I really hadn't worked with it. I've worked with cold porcelain years ago, but the problem with cold porcelain, I always found it looked a very little bit plasticky, and plus also, thank you Noreen, the cold porcelain sort of shrank about 20-25%. The hardy clay only shrinks about 5%, so it's a very small shrinkage, but it's very, very easy to work with. And the only difference between if those who work with air drying clay and sugar is obviously air drying clay, basically you're just using a PVA glue to stick things together, wires and things, and then of course sometimes you'll use a little bit of vegetable shortening or fat in some of the finer veiners, but as I said, other than that, it's pretty much the same as sugar, where you would use egg white and then obviously corn flour or corn starch. Thank you, Noreen. But you know, there's a lot of these beautiful things, you know, like things done obviously again by, you know, team members. So this is done in air drying clay using obviously you can see here the bluebells here, so you have the beautiful bluebells. So they're really lovely, that the fact that you can take your sugar craft molds and then you can use them. And of course you know, they're beautiful too. In sugar, you know, these are some of my red roses here. So you can see the red roses, the ferns, and the baby's breath
How
here.
exquisite.
So these are all out of the collection. All right, and I'm going to show you the basics of sort of the first stages of the rose, and also how to make the fern. But but of course, if you were using those roses in your house, you could make those in, as I said, air drying clay, and that would give you a beautiful alternative to sugar. And of course, as I said, it's a little bit easier to keep long term as well. But anyway, so the collection of molds, there are 5 molds in the collection. All right, so this is the, as I said, just go through these very briefly. This is the ultimate petal veiner, and this is a double-sided vein. You're going to see how this works in a moment. All right, this is the rose cone and thorns. So this actually has 3 sizes of rose cone cavities, and then also 2 thorns. But also we use this for many other flowers that start off with a cone, like when I teach dahlias, when I do magnolias, when I do certain other flowers, proteas and things, I use cone shape. This is the multi-leaf veiner, which again can be used for rose leaves, but dozens and dozens of other leaves. In the actual videos we have to assist the Flower Pro, which are all free and accessible through Katy Sue's obviously website and also on YouTube. But you can, obviously this is a double-sided veiner that you could use not only for rose leaves, but for example in the Flower Pro book, I use these for lilac leaves, bavaria leaves, jasmine leaves, and hydrangea leaves. So this is very much a generic veiner which you could use for many, many different types of leaf. This is the fern. These 2 particular molds we're very excited and pleased with these, because this is really something totally unique. There really has never been this type of concept in flower making before, in the fact that these, when you use these, you don't use any cutters. So all of those ferns and all of these filler flowers, actually this makes 24 different filler flowers. Have you just got the leaflet for that, Noreen? The little insert, have you got that for? Thank you so much. Noreen will just give you the insert just to give you an idea. And as I said, I went through a lot of detail this earlier on, but you see all of these flowers here, these are all made with this one mold, and they're all made without any cutters whatsoever, okay, just by pressing the paste into there and using it in different ways. Each of the actual veiners or molds comes with this comprehensive sort of breakdown of what everything is. Obviously has talked about the tutorial. So this is a video assisted package. So Flower Pro is a unique concept in we're trying to sort of like really in some respects simplify flower making to make it accessible for everybody. So everybody will be able to make flowers with really very minimal amount of investment cost wise. You don't have to really buy a lot of cutters and a lot of things that we would traditionally use in flower making. And but they each have, so for example here, this is the one that obviously shows the Stephanotis and the baby's breath, and then goes on to show obviously how I make the hydrangea without any cutters. I did use a couple of cutters in the book for like a rose calyx, rose leaf, rose blossom shape, and then on obviously some of the flowers like on the Stephanotis and the cherry blossom and the little jasmine, I've used obviously a little small jasmine or daisy cutter. But actually all of the actual floral part of that was created without any cutters.
That's incredible. When I just think how much that would cost me.
Exactly. And you know, so here you can see these are just some of the filler flowers from the here you have a spray. We've got obviously in here, you know, hyacinths, you have jasmine, forget-me-nots, hydrangeas, mimosa, lily of the valley, and forget-me-nots, and also little fern leaves. So all of those, pretty much other than the 2 little fern leaves, were made from part of that one mold. So basically you could decorate a whole wedding cake with the investment of buying just that one single mold. Thank you, Noreen. So when we're working with the molds, there is, as I said, we have, there are full-length video tutorials and also there are short videos. So if you go to Katy Sue Designs website, you'll see basically along a little slider, you'll see Flower Pro. You click on that and it's going to come down and you're going to have obviously different resource buttons on there. There's a downloadable size guide on there. There's also, you have on there the short videos and also links to the longer videos. You can also go to YouTube and put in Katy Sue and Flower Pro and you will see obviously those videos come up. But we also have created, as I said, a Facebook page. So the Facebook page is basically to marriage as we talked about, of craft and sugar. So this is really the whole idea of this is that any of you that are purchasing in, now or later on the Flower Pro. We'd love to hear your feedback, what you create with this. Those of you especially do crafts, how you could take these things and use them in lots of different ways.
Make something different, yeah.
So for example, Jack, who is one of our, she does a lot of mixed media. So this is a beautiful journal, all right? You see that is all being done using the Flower Pro. So you see here, obviously, the ferns in here, and then the stephanotis, and then Jack has actually used the middle of the small 5-petaled bud. And so you can see how you get this beautiful, so it's just really taking this into a totally different element. But even those of you that don't necessarily make a lot of sugar flowers, but maybe do a lot of fondant work, you could think about this as a relief on the side of a fondant cake. You could do this in lots of...
all that inspiration relates, either whether it's craft or whether it's cake, all that inspiration relates to whatever craft it is that you're actually doing. As Nick said, you can either use your PVA glue to put your flowers together, or you're going to use egg white with your sugar paste. So it's a great crossover, and we've said it was a cross-pollination, but it is exactly that, and we're looking so forward to seeing all the inspiration. Even if you have any problems, just ask, and then members of the group will be able to help you and say, well, I've done this and we've worked at that. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing not only cake, but also the jewellery and the mixed media, all the cards.
Yes. So this is where your platform where you can share, which has never really been done before. You can share your ideas and creativity, and it's a great way of sort of finding inspiration, getting other ideas. So if you come up with a new way of making or a different flower, share that, because that's what we. And also on there, of course, you can ask questions. So if you have any, or you're having any drama with any of the things, but remember we actually have 31 videos, and I spent 10 days here in May actually filming all of those to have them ready. So
that's incredible to have that resource. 31 videos.
And that, remember, those are all free and accessible to you. So you not only get obviously amazing product, but also the access to being able to have almost like a private class with me, and being able to watch things. And then we also have the Flower Pro book. All right, so this is a lovely book that we've just finished, and those of you that watched us on Hochanda, we didn't have the book available, so this is literally hot off the press. Okay, so this is just really, as I said, launched today, but this goes through a lot of detail, which I went through in quite a lot of depth earlier today, going through about the the size guide, and about the paste we use, what I recommend paste you use, and then also paste formulas, because generally when I'm coloring paste for flowers, I'm using a lot of times fondant to color the paste, or gel colors, so pro colors. So basically this has got a lot of information which is broken down to the UK, which obviously would be more like UK, Europe, and then obviously the Americas, where I'm based in Atlanta, so in USA, obviously South America, Central America. And then there's also a recipe here for a homemade, or what we call in the US a scratch gum paste, so that's obviously made with CMC or Tylose. So if you don't have access to like Renshaw products, as obviously that is one you can make with CMC or Tylose. Anyway, so this goes through equipment, and then of course it goes through all of the, just to quickly flick through this, but it goes through all of the flowers in detail. So you have obviously beautiful illustrations, photographs, and then the step-by-step photographs as well.
So it's really a fantastic reference book.
It is, and we sort of made this as a sort of workbook, so it's spiral bound, so it means if you're working, it's very easy to have this on your table, so if you're making, obviously, let's say you're making rose leaves, you've got this here. But the reason why we did this is a lot of my students personally find it, when you're watching sometimes a video or tutorial, if you're trying to take in all of that information and write it down or whatever, because although you can pause it, but sometimes it's difficult to rewind.
Absolutely.
But you have really what I'm saying in front of you written down in a book. So the nice thing about this is that it means you have, you can read through it as almost as you're watching. So as I say, it's a little bit like a sort of a private class, and being able to sort of go through the flowers and obviously make them to the instructions.
And just how lucky are we? Private class, Chef Nicholas Lodge. Wow.
Well, thank you, Doreen. That's very sweet. And we've, as I said, been, obviously had a lot of fun on Craft TV, and as I said, we did the Facebook Live earlier. So now I'm just going to show you a little bit about the sort of the products here. Just actually a little bit of a visual of what they really do. So when we make roses, typically we're going to start off with a cone. All right. So the cone actually we have in 3 sizes. There's a large, there's a medium, and there's a small size cone. All right, and so these cones are obviously to represent 3 sizes of roses. Again, we try to standardize this so that this is a small, a medium, a large cone, and then it relates to, in the instructions or in your leaflet, in your product information, in the packaging, it tells you the same sort of basic information. It relates to obviously using a sort of a small, a medium, or large cutter, or a small, medium, or large calyx. So we really just try. So it means then if you're making medium roses, you don't have to think about really what you're doing.
So for me, what this gives me, this is the foundation that you're going to need to be able to make that perfect rose. So that's what I love about it, because you're always going to have the different sizes, and you know with confidence that that's going to make you a fantastic rose.
Yes, because the thing I was talking earlier today, when I made my first flower when I was 10 years old, the frustration was, it just said take a ball of paste or a pea of paste, and there's no explanation of sort of how many grams it was or how big a size,
yeah.
and so this really just helps to standardize, and it means when you come to put the petals on, because when I was, I think probably 15 was when I first made ever made my roses. I made all these. I was doing a wedding cake, and this is when I was still living at home, and
wow.
I sort of made all of these cones and then let them dry. The next day I go to put the petals on and realized the cones were too long. They were just the wrong shape. So the nice thing about this is just going to standardize, so all of your cones will be perfect every time.
So for all of these molds, we've really gained by your experience. So we're not going to make the mistakes that Nick made previously. And the other thing I love about them is how you've left these channels for the buyers.
So the little channel here, this for those of you that obviously have some of my Nicholas Lodge collection by Katy Sue, which we launched last year, like the pine cones. Same sort of concept as the pine cone. So when we make roses, obviously, I'm just working from the book, all right, here. So it basically says to create cones in two. So you're going to, for the large cone, medium cone, and small cone, there's it, because obviously large roses you'd use an 18 gauge wire, medium roses a 20 gauge wire, and small roses a 22. Okay, so I'm going to do the medium cone, so 20 gauge wire, wrap half width floral tape around the end of the wire 10 times, make a hook at the end of the tape still attached, wrap around another 15 times. This is what we call a floral tape bud. Oops, sorry, I'm just knocking things down here. And so we're going to take the floral tape here, and so with the floral tape I'm going to just stretch this slightly, and then going to go round, and I'm going to go round 10 times, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But this is really just like a little extract of really how it will be watching. And the YouTube videos are all up and running, and also you can buy all of the products are available. So you can go to Katy Sue, obviously UK, Katy Sue US, also International Sugar Art Collection, which is obviously nicholaslodge.com. We have also the molds available as well. And with, obviously depending on what you're buying, we have free shipping on obviously all of the different bundle packages. So, but we have the, as I said, you're going to go around 15 times and they're going to come down the wire. So if those of you who obviously live in Europe and India and things, this is obviously just the world launch, which we've just had with on Hochanda, but you'll be able to buy those from obviously Katy Sue here in the UK. Those of you who are in the Americas, Canada, the Caribbean, Puerto Rico, places like that, obviously you can buy those through Katy Sue in the US, or through, as I said, those of you who shop with us as well, or through nicholaslodge.com. So we've made our floral tape bud. Now there's two ways to make the rose, which again both of these are shown on the videos. So actually on the tight bud video it shows how to make full rose cones, and on the rose, the other rose one, because the rose actually has 5 different videos, because it's obviously quite a complex flower with its different components. But what you basically would do is you'd push your paste, you'd fill the mold with gum paste or flower paste, petal paste, put a little bit of egg white on your floral tape bud, and then you'd push that in. So you take this out, and then basically what you do is let that dry for about 2 hours. Then you'd refill the mold with soft paste, brush a little bit of egg white over the surface, and you take the dry part and you press the dry part to the soft part. Now when you make rose cones, you're going to get almost like the slightest seam, but of course that's going to be covered. But even if though the fact you really don't see the cone, if we try to make 2 halves at the same time and stick it together, you're probably going to distort it. Okay, so that's one way to make the cones. And then the second option is you can actually make an all-in-one cone, and that is in your I said both of these are in your instructions. So the size guide, which is included in the book. So at the back of the book you have a size guide. So this is the Flower Pro size guide. So this is how we measure the paste. Okay, so this is in the back of your book. We've also added a notes area there as well. So we try to think of everything. So obviously you can make additional notes in here as well. But in the size guide, which I have here, when we measure the size guide, so in the book, when it talks about rose cone sizes, so for example, if you were making like the half cones here, so here we've got so measure the cone here, so the large cone would be a number 11, the medium cone would be a number 8 small, and the number 7 small for the small cone. Now when it says, for example, number 11 or number 10 or number 9, that means that basically when you measure this, you'd measure with 1/3 below and 2/3 above. Now, so if you were making something where it said like number 10 size, you'd use the number 10 hole, and you place this into the number 10 hole. So you see there's approximately about 1/3 below the hole and 2/3 above the top. Now, so if you were making, for example, something that used the number 10, and you were making 3 of them, you just use this as your master size, and then you make another 2 balls the same size, all right? Now, it's just, the reason why I do this, it just sort of helps you to, for example, if you were going to be making sugar flowers for a wedding cake, it means that you can calculate basically how much paste you need based on the size of the balls of paste you need. You know, if you're making filler flowers or whatever in a certain color.
Also, sometimes if you're making them without having this kind of guide, you can get carried away and they can be totally different sizes, which you may not want.
Yes, and that's why, you know, using a cone. So actually on the all-in-one cones, so on the all-in-one cones here, which obviously it talks about when creating all-in-one cones, it would be a number 13 small for the large, a number 10 small for the medium, number 8 small for the small, okay? So here I have here, this is going to be a number 10 small size. All right, so that means it just goes through the hole. So you see the ball of paste just goes through the hole, so that would be classed as a number 10 small, okay? Now we condition the paste. I would recommend you watch, there is a sort of an introductory DVD or sort of YouTube which actually talks a lot about the size guide, talks about equipment, but especially talks about paste, all right? So, you know, you can use a homemade scratch paste. We talk a lot in the various class about the, you know, because I'm ambassador for Renshaw in the United States, obviously I've used actually totally all of the cakes covered with Renshaw product, and all of the flowers were made with Renshaw paste. This is the petal paste, which is only available in the UK and Europe. We don't have this, for example, in the US or in South America or Mexico, but petal paste has 300 gram sticks. This comes just in white, and it talks in this in depth on the videos about using this, where you obviously this is comparable to a sort of a homemade paste in that it is a sort of CMC Tylose based product. Renshaw also have in the US what we call gum paste, or here have flower modeling paste, which does come in many colors. This I do find dries a little quicker because this is gum tragacanth based product. So I have a formula that I use when I'm using this particular product, and that is that it's which is covered in the book and on the video and things, and you'll see in some of the actual YouTubes, where I use 85 grams of the gum paste or the flower modeling paste, and I add 15 grams of fondant. And what the fondant does, the fondant or sugar paste, it just sort of basically just sort of lightens it up a little bit. It gives it a little bit of an extended working life for fine flowers. This is also a vegan product, which means it doesn't contain any egg white. So obviously if you were using this, cutting out like a little daisy or pushing the paste into, say, little forget-me-not mold like this, and then putting it onto a cupcake or a cookie, obviously that is a vegan product. But when I make, as you'll see on my YouTubes, when I use it for especially making roses, what I'll do is add a little bit of egg white to it to make it more elastic, and that gives it obviously elasticity for certain flowers, okay? But for something like a cone, we don't need to do that. So I'm going to take a little egg white, so I'm going to just use a little bit of egg white. You can use pasteurized egg white. This is actually just some dried egg white. I've just used some egg albumum. I've just reconstituted with a little bit of water. So I'm just going to put a little bit of egg white onto here. And I'm just going to push this into my number 10 ball. Now when I'm making rose as far as like making it actually as a rose, I normally make my cones in white. And when I'm making actually the rose bud, okay, so when you actually make the, for example, like the sort of the tight bud, you know, like you're making sort of actually like buds, tight buds, we generally start off with actually with the color of the bud. So this, for example, here you can see this red rose. So when you make this tight bud, which you'll see on the videos, I actually make this in the same color as the rose. In this case was a red color, like a ruby color. And then what you then do is you pinch like a little fish's tail, and that forms the first layer of petals. But when you're making a rose to this stage or a smaller stage, you're going to make usually a cone in white, okay? And that means you can, of course, make several of those, and you could just stockpile them. You know, Noreen, obviously Noreen's background is a lot of crafts, so you know this is you know, just obviously things that relate to crafts as well. And you can use this for lots of different things, you know, for different designs on cakes, but you can also use this for like going with a baby face. You can use this for obviously interior for figure modeling and things like that.
Little animal bodies,
exactly.
We've had all sorts of things, haven't we?
So what we now do is you're just going to put this into the cone, you see, and then you just rotate this like this. And you see what it's going to do is just going to just take off all the excess paste we don't need. So you see that is just going to be removed with a pair of scissors, and your cone is finished. Okay, so you see you have a perfect cone, and that means that you could make 12 of those, 24 of those, just dry them, and then you could, you know, when you need to make roses, they're going to be pre-dry. So you generally would dry this for about 4 hours in sugar. If you're using air drying clay, about 2 hours.
The great thing about that, even if you're using with air dry clay or sugar, that you'll be able to keep them. So if you know that you've got an upcoming event, all of this can be pre-prepared, can't it?
Exactly. You know, because just like preparing, you know, when we do cake, we have to sometimes we'll make the flowers in advance. So this is the this is actually Renshaw petal paste. Okay, so I'm just going to condition this with what I refer to as conditioning. And again, that's why I'd recommend you watch the introductory video first, because this is where I talk about how to condition the gum paste. That means we add a little bit of vegetable shortening or white fat to this. So those of you who live in the UK, you know, something like Trex, White Flora, and the US like Crisco, basically must be vegetable, not animal. And so you're just going to work that into the paste. All right, and then when we use this, for example, especially for roses, I'll often just add a little bit of egg white to this, either fresh egg white or pasteurized egg white. So what that does, it actually will give your gum paste more elasticity. But as I said, the petal paste, the Renshaw petal paste, is a little bit more elastic, and as I said, it has a little bit more stretch than the other one. But you only need to do that really when you're doing flowers like roses, peonies, where you're rolling out the paste thinner. Now this is just a quick little demo, so I'm just going to roll out my paste freehand, but as a lot of you have watched me before, you know, whenever I'm making flowers, when I'm rolling paste out, I always use a pasta machine. It's just we don't have a lot of room here on the table because we've got some display cakes and things on there. But I use KitchenAid pasta machines. You'll see that widely used on my videos. So you just would roll out your paste nice and thin. So usually I roll it out number 6 on the pasta machine. And when you watch the videos, you'll be able to sort of see how I prepare the paste, and then I would go through the pasta machine like number 3 and number 6. Okay. Now we're going to take, this is a 9cm or 90mm cutter. You will also find on the Katy Sue, Katy Sue, because of Flower Pro, because this is a whole package, we're now also selling, like, we have cutters on there, we have wires, we have floral tape. So rather than having to go to a lot of other places to find what you need, this is sort of a one-stop shop for all your flowers. Okay. So, of course, you could cut out several of these at a time. I'm just going to show you one of these. But this is a 90mm or 9cm cutter, and that is for the medium rose. The small rose uses a 7cm or 70mm. The large rose uses 110 or 11cm. So it's basically 7, 9, 11 centimeters, okay? And that matches for the roses. So just going to press this down, go around in a circular movement. Just going to tap this, so this will come out of the... And of course, when I show this on my videos, I would normally put this into a plastic flap, and I would cut out several at a time. So we're going to just take the veiner here. All right. So the veiner, as I said, this is a very unique veiner in that we've basically made this. So this is really, once you've cut that rose out, all you need is this veiner. You're going to basically vein it on here, soften on here, and build on here. All right. So rather than having to have a lot of equipment, and I know some of you go to like evening classes and things like that, where you'll sometimes have to take a lot of stuff with you, so it just makes it a little bit easier. Just make sure your paste isn't sticky. All right. So you're just going to use a little bit of cornstarch. This is a little puff here, and then what we're going to do here is going to just take the rose. Now, as you can see, this is being developed. So if you were using the 11cm, which is obviously a little bit bigger, this is made actually 5 inches in size. So you can use this from a little small blossom right the way through. But what's also excellent about this, you can use this as almost like your go-to veiner for pretty much most of the flowers you're going to make. Like sweet peas, this is fabulous, Lisianthus, because like you just put your sweet pea petals on there, you can vein 5 at one time. Individual rose petals. When you do peonies, like for example, this is a quick peony made actually with a blossom cutter. So this is actually done with this blossom cutter. And what I did there is instead of, and because it's a peony, I wanted a ball shape. So what I did is I actually made the large size cone like that. And then I just literally just cut the end off with my scissors. So I'm making a large size ball. And I just follow my rows and I put on layer 2, layer 3, layer 4. And then obviously one layer would give you your peony bud. This is actually sort of the start of actually book number 2. So I'm actually flying back to Atlanta tomorrow. I'm working on a list of the new flowers I'm going to be adding to this. Thank you. It's wonderful. So I'm always constantly sort of, obviously thinking about new things. So you just line this up. So you see how you put this on. We're just going to line this up like so. Now usually when you're doing smaller things, like you can just obviously press with your fingers. It's a fairly large surface area, and especially if you were doing the bigger size rose, the 11 centimeter. So you can just use like a cake board. This is just a cake board here. You could use a sugar paste rolled fondant smoother, and you're just going to press over the top of this like that, because what that does, it distributes the weight, so it's a little bit easier than, you see, so you're going to, when you take that off, you're going to get the lovely veining, see? So you're going to have this beautiful veining onto your petals, and you're going to then take this off of the veiner, like so. Now in traditional rose making, we would then take this and we put it onto a foam pad. So like this is, like a foam pad, alright, so this is like a pad I use. But as I said, that obviously is another piece of equipment you'd have to take to class or you need on your table. So you could of course totally take this and put it onto there. You could just use this as a veiner. But this is actually being made so you can actually vein on this. So what you actually do here is soften on this. So what you do is you put this onto the silicone, and then taking your ball tool, you actually can go around here on the actual veiner. You see on the back of the veiner, so you see how I can actually soften around my rose petals like this. Because I work with a lot of, like for example, pastry chefs at places like Disney, various hotels and things. In a hotel bakery, they have very limited amount of equipment, and so the idea is behind this that you pretty much, it's sort of almost like once you've cut it out, you can do everything you need to on this. Then we're going to, so the side that I softened, because naturally when you soften, you're going to raise the vein in a little bit. You turn it over here. You're going to place this onto the veiner, right? So you want this on the veiner that's got the numbers on here. All right, so when I make flowers, that's the one thing, like when my students are working, they're trying to read their book and also like watch what they're doing with their numbers. So basically we put this all on the mat, all right? So this, as I said, this whole concept took 9 months to develop. So we've been working very hard on this for the last 9 months. As we said earlier today, this is a little bit like having a baby, all right? It has a sort of but now the baby's out, so we're obviously very happy. It's healthy.
It's happy and healthy.
Yes, exactly. And so now we're going to take the rose cone, all right? So we're going to take the rose cone here, and then I'm just going to brush some egg white over my cone. So you brush your egg white all over the top of your cone here, okay? I'm going to lift this up. I'm just going to put and you see this is innovative because it's got a hole in the middle of the silicone mold, all right? Now you're just going to support this on your hand. Now how I normally do that is I use 2 fingers, I put the mold there, and I actually am almost like clamping, just trying to show you, I'm almost clamping with my fingers, okay? Now, of course, if you're working on with a long wire, like a long stem rose like the red roses, you're going to have to do this a little bit higher in the air, okay? This is the companion tool which comes with the filler flower. So when you buy the filler flower, this amazing that we called it the companion tool because it will be like your best friend, okay? So you're going to start off with, so we're going to do layer number 1, all right? So you can see here we need petal number 1. So petal number 1 is going to come up beside the cone, and you're going to wrap this around, and you're going to then just tuck that in and bring this around like this. So this is going to form your first layer, okay? So that is going to be your first petal, is number 1. Then we need number 3 and number 5. So petal number 3, which is here, I'm going to brush egg white about halfway up number 3 and halfway up number 5. Petal number 3 will come up, and then petal number 5, so you can just come around here. You're going to just tuck that into itself like that. So you create like almost like a yin and a yang. Okay, so this will give you your 3 and your 5. If you find your cone moves, which sometimes it does, because you're just tighten it up, and the little needle tool end on that is wonderful. Okay, you're just going to just press this together, and then you're going to then go on to pedal number 2 and pedal number 4. So you see the numbering is on here. You've got 1, then 3 and 5, then comma, then 2 and 4. So you know the sequence, all right? So then you're going to take pedal number 2, all right, and then you're going to take pedal number 4. But I just found the little stick works really, really well for this. Just
it really does, yeah. Especially if like me, you maybe a little bit clumsy, or you know, when you're trying these things, you can feel a little bit like you need a bit help. So yes, you definitely need your companion.
So just going to put just a little bit of egg white here. Now I use egg white, and I do talk about this on my tutorials. I always have used egg white, but as I said, some obviously sugar artists use, I mean there are some people who just use water, some people use edible glue. But anyway, this is like the sort of the basics of the, you know, this either rose bud, so that would be a regular bud, and then if you obviously, you know, you put another like 2 layers on it, you'll get, obviously, you just build, this is one is in pale pink, you just follow the instructions. So obviously the next layer would go on there, which would be pedal number 1 and 3, and then 2, 4 and 5. So that's
fabulous that you've got that actually on the mold, so it means that you're going to just be able to look at that,
yes,
and reference that every time you want
and
to.
Like for example, if you couldn't find your instructions or your book or something, you know, as long as you've got your mold, you're obviously able to do that. So that sort of just gives you an idea of really about how, you know, we tried to think about everything.
I think you have. I think you have thought of everything. That's fantastic.
So that's a really fun product. You know, the leaf veiner, just to explain that, you know, this makes amazing, obviously, like rose leaves. Okay, so you can see here the veining on the leaves have this beautiful veining onto the back. And again, this is a very unique design, as I talked about in more detail, but it's a sort of convex concave design. And most molds, I've never found a mold that really worked well with wired petals or leaves, because what happens is that the mold is made with a negative and positive. There's nothing to accommodate the wire. This actually has a trough in it, so you see this little sort of hollow there. So that actually means when you put your wire in your leaf, so if you're doing a wired, or like a wired rose leaf, or if you're doing an unwired rose leaf, but when you do a wired leaf, when you put that into the veiner like this, and when you see, as I said, the wire will stay intact in that ridge. And the other thing is this is a very quick way to make leaves, because you just roll the paste out on the pasta machine, or roll it out by hand, cut out the leaf shape, insert the wire into this. So I don't use the groove board, which is a traditional method of obviously making leaves. So again, I do
love the fact that you get both the front and the back of the leaf as well. It's really quite botanically correct. So for me, that's gorgeous.
And the other thing with this is as well that this is a unique design, but it's again also it's both parts are together, so you're never going to lose it. You know, so we also thought about things matching up, or because I had actually a student a couple of weeks ago came to my store in Atlanta to my school, and it's like, you know, chef, could you help me? She had this like shoebox full of like cutters, and she didn't know which cutters, because she basically just put them all into this big box, and you know, like we all guilty.
Which is what?
So she didn't know like which cutters went with which part. So you know, the nice thing about it is everything is on one mold.
Fabulous, fabulous.
You know, the fern is a beautiful, obviously, accent for lots of different things. You know, you can obviously, here we have the cake, which actually is probably easier to show you here on the photograph in the book, but the cake we have on the front cover of the book here. Front cover. There we go. So this is you can see here obviously the roses. Okay, so you see how you've got your beautiful roses here, but you see how I've used the fern obviously on the spray here. Ferns are an amazing obviously thing to use in an arrangement. You can see here this is the roses, the baby's breath, the leaves, and the fern. So everything you see here was all created with the Flower Pro. Okay, so the only basic cutters I used was a blossom cutter and a calyx cutter, and a leaf cutter, and that's it. You know, so just your basic cutters. But baby's breath is created in the mold. Obviously, the ferns are created in the mold.
Just so superb.
Thank you, Noreen. But the fern is, you know, has obviously, you can do wired or unwired. This is the large frond, okay, so this could be used, you know, this would be beautiful, like for example, just on a birthday cake with say a gum paste, a sugar orchid. Those of you do like sort of obviously use air drying clay, you could use this on a frame. So this is lovely. We actually have the frame behind us with the ferns on it. Maybe you could bring that in, Noreen.
Yeah.
So you see, this is a frame I created here. So You see, I've just got a very simple, like a shabby chic sort of whitewashed frame, and then I've used this.
But really, you need no more than that, do you?
And this was just done in, obviously this is done in air drying clay,
It's
but
fabulous.
of course, you know, it's a little bit more, so you can see how beautiful and rich the ferns are. But so the fern has this large part to it, all right, and then you've got, obviously, these are your basically your fronds, which are the sort of name for the sort of side pieces. So you have your, you know, this is the large frond here, this is the medium frond, this is the small frond here. Okay, so you, of course, you just would make, and you always are going to work in pairs, all right, so you'd make like 2 or 4 of those, 2 or 4 of those, 2 or 4 of those, depending on how many you want. Like if you look at this fern here, I've got like 2 sets of large, so 4 large, 4 medium, 4 small, and then the end piece. This fern here, I've got one pair of each, 1 pair of small, 1 pair of medium, so depending on how you're going to use it. And then you see, like for example, on this spray, this is from my rustic wedding cake, which I have a full video tutorial on that. You see I've used the ferns here with my pine cones, have a white rose here made with the vena, the hydrangeas are made with that. So, you know, it's a great way to, and from my berry mold.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of you have been asking me about the fern because obviously we showed it on a YouTube, actually a Facebook Live.
That's right.
Noreen and I did a Facebook Live in January when I was over in the UK. We were doing some production work and obviously development of some of the products. And I did actually the wedding cake, and we did a little video on it, and obviously had it on the Facebook Live. And a lot of you have been for the last several months like, Nicholas, when is the fern coming out? So finally the fern is here.
It is. It's arrived.
And then
with the baby.
Yeah, and this is the sort of the end part of the fern. All right, so this is the end part of the fern, which again, you know, of course, this is a small one. You could do this wired or unwired. Okay, so this is we're done with that. So just to show you this, and remember, if you have any questions. Now, also in the book here, and there is obviously information on, of course, on the Facebook page, there is, you know, you can question, obviously, because basically I'm sort of helping moderate that, so you can ask any questions you have. There's also in the book my email address pertaining to obviously questions. You know, please don't ask me, well, what's your favorite, you know, vanilla sponge recipe or something like that.
No.
And so, you know, the whole idea, and the whole idea with obviously the Facebook page is also, you know, of course, we love to see everybody's things, but basically it is pertaining to Flower Pro. Okay, yes. So it means if you're buying these products and you get the fern mold and you use it for a different leaf, we want to see that. Okay, but anyway, so on the fern here, this actually has the sizes. Okay, so you know, number 9 small, number 8 small. So I'm just going to show you this just to finish up with. I can't see it. I can't read it. I'm getting
just get time check.
Time check. 40 minutes.
So Sue's giving me, but the lights are so bright I can't read what she had on the teleprompter. So we need a number 8 small, all right, and a 26 gauge wire. So basically these small ones here are done on 28 gauge wires, and then this larger one is on a 26 gauge wire. So this is a 26 gauge wire. And I need a number 8 small. I'm actually using here, this is the Renshaw green flower modeling paste, or you could also use, like, say, the Rainbow Dust Pro Gel. They have a really nice color called Gooseberry, which is like a moss green.
Yeah.
And so this is going to be that sort of mossy green color. Could I just have my size guide, Noreen?
Yep, you can.
She's
I'll
like
sell you one.
She's like a squirrel.
I'll sell you it because it's invaluable.
But as I said, you know, the whole idea of this whole collection is it's just really to make life easier, to making flowers really, in some respects, more fun, and also, you know, it's like a lot of things. You know, sometimes you get sort of bogged down with like making lots of flowers for a wedding cake, and it gets tedious, and then sometimes you don't really enjoy it. We've tried to sort of bring back the fun in flower making, but also to create results that would a lot of times take in a lot more time.
That you'd be proud of.
Yes.
And you know, when you're first starting out, to me, it's scary. Let's face it, it's scary. And if you're going to do something as a gift, you want to give it with love, but you want to be proud of that product as well. So all of these has just enabled me to inspire and give that pride to other people and say, look, I can do this. I can do this. You don't have to have done it for 40 years like Nick has. I can do some of this. And you get the pleasure from doing it. So it's fantastic.
Yes. So this is your number 8 small. I'm going to take my 26 gauge wire. Just going to put a little bit of egg white onto that. And then I'm going to stick this up my carrot. So it's going to go up the top here like this. Alright, I'm just going to flatten this down. So you see this is going to be about the size of the mold. Now when we work with obviously sugar, normally I put a little bit of cornstarch onto my bag onto here. I'm going to just press this in, and I use cosmetic sponge a lot. You know, like Noreen uses her finger because she's working a lot with obviously air drying clay. But I use my, as I said, cosmetic sponge, and the main reason for that, you know, just as a technical thing, is like when you're pressing paste into, say, the cone mold and use your thumb, because your thumb does obviously concave, convex shape, it means you're going to get this sort of divot. So it means your surface area where your two halves of your cone or your pine cones touch are not going to be flat, you know.
And that made perfect sense to me. Again, it's another top tip from Chef Nicholas. And it made perfect sense to me because I actually did that, and it did have kind of a little bit of a divot. But when Nick's doing these leaves as well, this is an invaluable tool, because what you're able to do then is just to spread it and get it thinner on the outer edges.
Yes. You know, because that's the one thing, you know, when you use molds, like for example, you'll see in the videos, like when I do my hydrangeas, and some of you saw this on Ochanda, which I showed it a couple of times, but you know, I put my sort of, basically it's like an X shape of paste in there. So when I'm pressing it, the middle is a little thicker, but you're actually you're using your perimeter of your, like a wall, okay, but you're not coming up level with the wall, because if you use this in a traditional method of making molds, they're going to look a little bit heavy, all right? But if you look at the, you know, the edge of these, you see how they're nice and fine, okay? So in sugar or in air drying clay, they have this nice fine edge.
And again, it's things like that that make the difference to your presentation.
Exactly, because, you know, it sort of makes things look more, well, basically that's why we have Flower Pro, so, you know, your flowers will look more like a professional, you know. And then you have these little, like little islands, okay?
Yeah.
Because if you look at this one has got a lot of islands, okay? So you see it's got like, obviously these little islands. So when you have the little, and then you're just going to once you see the little island come up, you see how I'm just working the paste down here, and then you can just use a little, like a mini palette knife. You could use a little small scraper. Just going to take away my excess paste here. So that's going to give me my little island, and I'm just going to flex my, it's a little bit warm in here. There we go, flex that. And this is going to give you your leaf, all right? So you see how that comes out, how it comes out of the mold, all right? So incredible detail. And then if if your little island is a bit sort of fuzzy, you know, where you haven't cleaned it, you're just going to go in there with your companion tool, and you see you can just clean out your little islands like that. And then all you would do is you basically would just sort of wire this together. So when you do this, you know, you just start off, and of course, you know, you can watch this all on the tutorials where I go through the coloring, but you wire it, then you put these in little pairs, very much like rose leaves, and wire that together.
So if you wanted to actually shape that, you would do that now, wouldn't
Sure,
you?
so totally. So
if you wanted to curve it.
So if you wanted to curve it, you know, like if you wanted to curve it down,
Yeah.
if you want to, for example, it to dry in a more sort of like a V shape, you see how you can do that. So it's going to give you that beautiful, beautiful shape to your fern. But you do that while it's soft, okay? As soon as you take it out of the mold. But just remember, you know, in traditional Katy Sue molds, we typically use a lot of like modified fondant or sugar paste, you know, where you add Tylo, CMC to, like when Noreen does a lot of the demonstrations and things for YouTube. But as I said, because we're working with flowers that need to be structurally stronger, because when you're arranging a spray of flowers, like you're putting flowers like this together, typically modified sugar paste or fondant is not going to have the structural integrity and strength of a flower paste or petal paste.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's really the only difference. But as I said, there is that whole YouTube you can watch, which actually goes through obviously talking about, you know, how to prepare your paste and sort of how to condition your paste. And of course, in each of the various YouTubes, I actually sort of in depth go into detail about the coloring, the dusting, you know, the wires and things like that.
I just can't believe the amount of information that this guy has. And now we've got it. We've got the information, so we can just start with full confidence and know that, you know, a little bit practice maybe, but we're going to be as good as Nick.
Yes,
Easy,
of course. Well, that's the whole idea, and we, as I said, wanted you to share that on, you know, our Facebook page, and obviously if you have any questions, and you know, we hope you enjoy your retail therapy on the website and to shop for the things.
Totally.
And but remember, I said the little companion tool comes with the filler flower mold. You know, so obviously there's the other molds and also the book, but also check out the other things we have on katysue.com for obviously wire, for cutters. So as I said, you know, you'll be able to buy everything everything you need to start making beautiful roses. So I hope everybody's enjoyed this
Wow.
Facebook page.
Well, I
Yep,
certainly
yep.
have, and I know everybody out there has. And I just want to say a great big thank
Oh,
you.
thank you.
And
So,
bon
always
voyage, and we're going to
Thank
see
you.
you very, very soon
Oh, yes.
again. So safe journey, Nick,
Thank
and
you.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much for all of that information
Yes.
that you've
and
given to
any
us.
of you come into Cake International, I'm going to be at Cake International.
Yes,
we have
look
some
out
other
there.
exciting things as well to share with
We
you at
do,
Cake International.
yeah.
Yes. So yeah, so come by and say hi, and this has been the Nick and Noreen show. So, thank you everybody. Have a great evening or great afternoon, those of you in the US. And as I said,
Hopefully
yeah.
see you soon.
Bye bye.
Bye.